Welcome everybody to the Carriker Chronicles, the People Show. Today I want to offer a response, not a lengthy one, but a response to baby Ferentz. Now, the head coach at Iowa, Carriker Ferentz, his son Brian Ferentz, former offensive line coach, is now the Hawkeyes offensive coordinator. He was on an Iowa show last week talking about recruiting, and he took some shots at Iowa State. He took a shot at Minnesota, and I'm not really sure why he's talking about Iowa State. I mean, it's not like the Cyclones are one of the elite programs in the country. No disrespect in any way, shape, or form. Maybe, I mean, you got to remember, the Hawkeyes, they're that school that paints their visiting locker room pink, trying to get in their opponents' heads. So maybe being in-state rivals, maybe Iowa State is in their head a little bit. I don't know. I'm not really sure why they're taking shots at these teams. But when he was done with those two teams, then he took an indirect shot, which was clearly at Nebraska. Now, my first response when I heard what he had to say, people who know me won't be shocked at this, was to cut a promo. Something like, the Chronicles 316 says we're going to whip your... No. I wouldn't say something like that. Maybe it'd be more like, we're going to stomp a mud hole and walk that thing dry, and that's the bottom line, because Adam Carriker said so. But no. That's just not my style. Anybody who knows me knows that's just not who I am. So here's what we're going to do today. We're going to look at what he said, and we're going to break it down factually. So let's look at the first quote I want to talk about. He said, we recruit against a couple schools that talk about a pipeline, he said. I'm thinking of one a little bit west of Omaha, must be talking about Lincoln Southeast or something like that, that talks about their pipeline. And I think they've had 2 players drafted in 2 years. So I'm not sure how much of the pipeline the coaches have contributed to. Now, over the past 2 seasons, let's be very clear, the Huskers have had 5 players drafted, not 2, the exact same amount as Iowa, by the way. Now, when it comes to a pipeline, Mr. Former offensive line coach, Mr. Ferentz, sir, in the state of Nebraska, we do have a pipeline to the NFL, but you got to keep in mind, when we're talking about the pipeline, we're talking about the offensive line. That's what we mean when we talk about the pipeline here in the state of Nebraska. So educate yourself a little bit. When you're talking about the Huskers going forward, please do so, Mr. Ferentz, sir. Now, I broke down some of the draftees that Iowa's had, Wisconsin, and Nebraska over the past few years along the offensive line a week ago. But if you break it down a little bit more in depth, especially the recent history since Coach Riley took over, Iowa's kind of losing those recruiting battles. Coach Riley's winning a lot of these recruiting battles, and maybe that's what sparks some of these comments. He's a little bit frustrated, he's a little bit upset. In fact, if you look at the offensive line specifically, Iowa and Nebraska has gone head-to-head 5 different times trying to get an offensive lineman since Riley took over, and Nebraska's gotten 3 of those commitments. Now, the last 6 times we played Iowa since we joined the Big Ten, the Huskers and Hawkeyes have split it. We're 3-3. Now, the past couple years, give credit where credit is due. Iowa's beaten us the past 2 years in a row, and they beat us soundly last year. All due respect with that. We'll see you again this year. But then he wanted to start talking about longevity. And when he starts talking about longevity, now he was talking about that Iowa's the only school in the entire Big Ten that has had coaching consistency like they've had since 1999, and that is true. But you want to start talking about longevity, what pops into my mind is how many championships does Iowa have in their entire history? They went undefeated a couple years ago in the regular season and walked away with no Big Ten title, no national title, no Rose Bowl championship. Who school has more All-Americans, has more overall draft picks, which has more first-round draft pick, Heisman Trophy winners? All right, you want to start at 1999? Let's just start at the year 2000. 2000 to now. Nice round number, the year 2000. Iowa's record is 135-92, a winning percentage of 59%. In conference, they are 83-64, a winning percentage of 56%. Now you look at the Huskers. Now Iowa's had 1 coach during that time. Nebraska's had 4. But does that mean they've had more success? Not necessarily. Even with 4 different coaches, the Huskers' overall record is 148-76, a winning percentage of 66%. And in conference, they're 91-53, a winning percentage of 63%. Now, personally, I'd like to see those winning percentages up a little bit higher. That's just our standard here at Nebraska. But when you're comparing them to Iowa and some of the things he said, I don't think he wins that battle when you look at the facts. Now, you got to keep in mind he does work for his dad. And I just have this image of his dad pulling him into the office after he said these things and spanking him like a 4-year-old in Kmart. Maybe that's just me. But personally, I'm glad he said some of these things because that pokes the fire of this rivalry a little bit, gives a little bit of oomph, makes people want to circle that Friday after, the day after Thanksgiving a little bit more. So to me, it's all about what you do on the field. And we get these boys at home this year, Husker Nation. Let's make it rowdy that day after Thanksgiving. Now, as you know, I post the Carriker Chronicles on the website. I'm also posting them on my Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube, the social media and YouTube, at night at 7 p.m. Central Time. So until next time, go Big Red, and always remember, throw the bones.